We are ready to start convening back with myself and Scott and Jason to talk more about what is happening in the Ukraine right now.
And I won't speak for you, but for me, I was more or less oblivious to what was going on until I think I heard something from Jason, and all of a sudden I realized there was an entire country that was in an upheaval, that for a couple of months thousands of protesters had been occupying Independence Square in Kiev. And it's just exactly like the Arab Spring, but with the exception that the state is not blindsided by social media or the internet.
How cool is it, and how empowering is it that we now can know what's going on beyond what's on our nightly news or in our regular news feeds that we might watch, because we have the ability to intentionally search and understand what's going on. And if we didn't know what was going on and we're just learning what's going on, we're glad to be able to share that with you so you are aware. There are a lot of resources online, Scott and Jason being two great starting points to get to other places to learn more about this.
First of all, it may be useful for those who don't know what your connection to the Ukraine is, if you could just in broad strokes identify what that was, and then if you could frame what you believe to be the issues that are in front of us right now.
Basically, I married Ukraine. I went over to Ukraine as a missionary with Church of God World Missions about 8 years ago, and I've been working with the Roma Gypsy community. It's a rather depressed community, if anybody's familiar, and have had a very rewarding experience there. Ukraine is our home. Ukraine is not just a place where we go and hang out. It's not just a temporary location. It's our home. And so as these things erupted, of course, it was no easy decision to move back to America. Now, that's kind of on a personal level. The first key element there is that, in fact, yes, this revolution started with a few student protesters as a result of not signing the EU agreement. It was an opportunity that had been in place for a while. Ukraine has been vying for this chance to be a part of the EU. At least the western half had, but then there was a huge population on the east is rejecting EU integration, and there's a number of people that are still very comfortable with the old way. The old way being communism, or at least socialism. These student protests erupted, and they got progressively more escalated when the government started to crack down and say, no, you will not protest. And they started to implement these laws, which were really bizarre. They came to be known as the dictator laws. The laws very much were controlling how people could protest, public gatherings, what you could say. Social media was being monitored, communications were being monitored. At one point, I went into panic mode because we were told that all of our communications, telephone, internet, radio, and television, everything was going to be shut off in a state of emergency. And that you can imagine how that freaks somebody out. I mean, can you imagine, if you're listening right now, can you imagine what that would be like to not have, I'm not talking about losing Angry Birds. I'm talking about losing television, telephone, communications, connections to the outside world. So my family lives about 15 hours by train away from the center of Independence Square, which is Maidan, in the capital city of Kyiv, which is the capital of Ukraine. We live about 15 hours away. We were far enough away that we weren't actually in the midst of all this big scuffle that was happening, this protest, the throwing of rocks, and the clashing with the police. We weren't in all of that. But we were glued to our televisions, and we wanted to know every day what's happening in our country. Okay. An uprising that happened on November 21st. The students rebelled. The government cracked down, started to add pressures. That just caused this revolution to kind of grow and develop. It became a bigger showing of people than the Orange Revolution. Many people were saying, yeah, it's bigger, but it doesn't seem like it's really quite as big of a deal at that point. Now, when they started the police, one of the things that was really the turning tide was there was an event where the police had literally attacked the crowd. They went and they were beating people. And I think Scott may have a video of some of this.
So,
you can this one right here. Yeah. The video right there. Cue that video. Yep, that's the one.
Here we go.
Yep, folks. At least from the protesters' standpoint, what this is all about is freedom. It's about human rights. It's about being able to walk down the street and not be afraid that you're going to be attacked, captured, thrown in the back of a bus, taken to the woods, put a plastic bag over your head, stripped down naked, doused with water in 9 degrees below Celsius, beaten, having nails driven into your hands with a hammer. These are torture tactics that are brutal, violent, and horrific, and are documented, proven. Men that have escaped the woods alive have reported, one man even said, "I wish they would have just killed me," because the torture was so severe. They were leaving a message. This is what is going to happen to you if you protest. And this is what the people are protesting about. The citizens of Ukraine, the people that are standing at Maidan, they are saying we want freedom from this sort of a regime.
I want to take a step back. So when we get from the social media aspect, what we get from being able to look at both sides because of the place that we are at and the intention that we have to search and the resources we have available, is that we actually get to see both sides, and we're seeing a very different representation than what is actually being covered in a more traditional channel. We're seeing something different than that in social media, correct?
That's one of the great things about social media, and so let's talk about the social media revolution for a minute. Prior to social media, we had what? 2 or 3 media outlets that we got fed our news from, and now we have people tweeting live from Maidan. People tweeting from both sides. We have the officers, the police that are tweeting and sharing their story and what's happening to them. We have the protesters sharing their side. And we have people in the East who are Russian speaking, and they favor Yanukovych and they want the government as it is now. And we see what the Westerners are saying, and we see this great divide. And so we're able to really watch this whole dialogue unfold. It's fascinating how social media has played a role in this. And Scott, man, you nailed it. Dude, you nailed it when you said early on that they were prepared, that the government was prepared and has used social media as well. The protesters didn't take anything by surprise.
Earlier relayed a particular story about these young kids who were out in the street and something happened to their cell phone.
A law was passed that said that you could not gather publicly and you couldn't wear helmets. And so the government geo-targeted cell phones and sent everybody that was in Maidan Nezhelezhnosti, which is the Independence Square, everybody that was in that radius received a text message on their cell phone that said, "You are in violation of code such and such," which carries a penalty of up to 10 to 15 years in prison. Can you imagine being a 16, 17-year-old college student who just went to go hang out for the day, see what's going on in your country, and then bang, you get a text message? I mean, that's going to freak you right out. I mean, talk about social media being used in a powerful way. I mean, geo-targeting. Powerful.
This is as much a war for the hearts and minds of people, and you shine a light on the governments and they cannot survive that. Well, here the government was shining a light on protesters, and they're saying, we know who you are and we know where you live, right?
Yeah. Law was passed that you have to register your SIM card. Prior to this, you didn't have to. So now when I'm able to geo-target as the government, I'm able to geo-target your phone. I know the SIM card that it's associated with, so I can scrape the towers and force the communications companies, the cell phone companies, to release that information of who those SIM chips are registered to. Think about all the possibilities as a totalitarian government, or as Big Brother, or whatever you want to call
It sounded to me like if you were geo-targeting an area, it was every SIM card in that area, whether or not you were a protester.
Oh, everyone, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that I think is a way over the top, because why would you send that to everybody, even if it was a supporter of yours?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that they can get that granular, but I
Right.
think the goal was to, let's freak out as many people as we can. Let's get the students out of here first of all. Let's scare these young kids.
How afraid are the people who were your neighbors and the
Yeah.
people that you knew personally?
One time there for about an hour, right in the heat of it all, right around the 22nd, 23rd, where there was a live camera that had been watching Hiroshima Street, which is where the main clashing and battles have been taking place, and that went black, and everybody was freaking out. We didn't know what was happening. We had just the last thing we saw was that the police had made this big push. These they're called the Berkut, and the Berkut are the riot police. They're adorned in these helmets and the shields and the face shields and these clubs, and there's quite some graphic videos out there about what the Berkut had done to the people.
If you could voice over this.
I think this happened right on or around the 22nd or 23rd of January. What you're seeing here is a big push back. This isn't the very first time that the Berkut had attacked. This is much later than the initial attack that happened. Here you're seeing the men in the shields are the police, or the riot police called the Berkut, and they are rather indiscriminately, when they capture someone like this man here, they capture and they just keep beating him. He's down. He has no way to defend himself. And they grab him and they drag him and they beat him. And what they're doing is they're trying to show that protesters, you're not going to protest. This is what happens to protesters. One of the demands of the protesters is we want to revert back to the Constitution that was in 2004, where the president's powers were less than the parliament, and let's seat some real legitimate judiciary.
So it was almost like what you, and I'm going to repeat this because I want to say it in a different way, and that's there was an imbalance of power, and the way that the Constitution was before, there was a better balance to ensure there was no, and I don't know if dictatorship is the right word, but it sounds like it. It sounds like, or a monopoly, maybe it might be a better word.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask. There's a number of people that absolutely think it's a dictatorship. Here we are now. Yanukovych is in power. He's got control. He doesn't sign the EU agreement. He instead signs a trade agreement with Russia. So he's basically selling or many people from the protesters, the nationals, the opposition, they perceive this as him selling it back to Russia. This is what the revolution is about. This is why people are standing out there, why there's barricades, why there's tire fires. So now the East is reporting that these protesters are destroying the city, there's rioting going on, they're uncontrollable, and they're attacking the police. And who are the police? One of those guys that's holding a shield standing in the very front line, that's my wife's nephew, or my wife's cousin. He was drafted into the military in the Ukraine. Every boy under the age of 18 or at 18, you are drafted into the military and you're conscripted. Right now, they're using all of those conscripts, those young boys, to stand at the front line and hold these shields. And this is why people are calling this a civil war. Now, that's a very strong term, and I'm not going to go on record saying it is a civil. It's not. I mean, some people say it is, some people say it isn't. But why are people saying that? It's because these frontline conscripts are our cousins, our brothers, and our sons, forced to hold a shield and stand on the front row and receive the blunt of the protesters, rocks, assaults, and then the riot police, or the Berkut, are the guys that are standing behind these boys. Whenever you see a mad rush or an attack of the police against the people, you'll notice that the front line, they kind of open up and separate, and the back line, or the riot police, are the ones that come through. They're the ones that are doing the beating. They're the ones that, when you watch these videos, they're the guys that are doing this brutality. They're the ones that the protesters want prosecuted. They want convictions. So the East is reporting that the rioters are causing all this problem. The police are defending themselves because many of them, hey, I'm the police. I have to defend. This is my job. And if I don't, what's going to happen? I mean, so all of this is being dictated from the top. If the government would give in to the protesters' demand, this can all stop. The boys can go home. Peace can resume. The people are demanding, have very specific demands. Eliminate these communism laws that were enacted or put into place. They've been repealed. Most of them have been repealed. They're asking that the Berkut who have beat the people, who we see in the videos doing all of the human rights violation, that they get prosecuted. We're asking for all of our protesters to receive asylum and to be released from prison. And there's a huge list going around of all the people that are currently sitting in prison as a result of these protests. Then they're asking for the president to resign. I support the opposition. I'll come out and say it. I support what the people are demanding in terms of freedom, in terms of human rights freedom. Basically, the opposition is not allowing the government to dictate this situation. You are not going to give us you are going to give us our prisoners, and you're going to give us amnesty, and we're going to continue to maintain control of these buildings. We're not going to give in anything. We have very strict demands. You will give in to our demands, or we will not leave. That's where it is right now. That's the standoff, because the people feel as though they've been lied to too many times. Oh yeah, here Stephanie also asked, how can we help these people? Here's what you can do. You can contact your local representative, your congressman, your senator, and you can tell them that you want them to support sanctions against the leaders in Ukraine that are committing human rights violations. The other thing that you can do is share this information into your social media. There's a lot of people that don't know what's happening. If you're here, that means that this is important to you. If this is important to you, then go and find articles on Ukraine, and Kyiv Post is a very good resource.
You've been talking for a while, and you're looking a little tired after everything you've been through. Tell you what, we do have a clip.
Yeah, well, I want you to make sure to show that other video too. Are you planning on showing some of those or no?
Let's take a look at that and then come back for some closing comments, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
This is an isolated case that has happened from the Berkut. This is the government. They're grabbing protesters, getting them behind the enemy lines. These are the human rights violations that we're talking about. This is the kind of video that needs to be shared so that the world can see what's happening. But the fact that it continues to happen and the government isn't stepping in and stopping this, there's the concern. And that's what you can do, is share this video or other videos like it to let the world know these are the human rights violations that cannot take place.
It's showing things like this, and this is not easy to see. This is what will turn things around.
Demonstrators strip and stand naked in the snow while they took pictures. Daytime temperatures in Kiev on Thursday, when the video was shot, were -10 degrees Celsius. This does not appear to be an isolated incident. There are reports of others facing similar treatment, as well as claims of abductions, including from a hospital, torture and suspicious deaths. Faced with video proof of this brutal episode, police apologized for what they called inadmissible action and said they were launching an investigation.
Now, this man that we just saw, he was released. He's safe now, and had shared what, in an interview, what had happened. And this was just one part of what had happened. The bus that he was placed on, there was a number of protesters that were also stripped naked, -9 degrees Celsius. It's freezing. I mean, it's absolutely freezing. They threw him in the bus, and then they would throw flash bombs into the bus. A couple guys died as a result of it. Guys would come out of the bus and were getting beaten, put back onto the bus naked, and freezing cold, humiliated. All right, let's move on to another topic.
So, yeah, I think that would be good. And you know, it seems like there's a lot playing on fear here. Fear not only for the people that are protesting, but the people who are trying to make decisions about what they should believe or shouldn't believe. And I'd like to explore that a minute. You were telling us you were having a conversation about fear and about that today.
In every city, and I live in a capital city of one of the oblasts, when the oblasts are states or provinces, and I live in a capital city in one of the oblasts, and I had gone down to our public administration building where barricades were built there as well. And is that what you have there, Scott?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you can go ahead and cue that up if you were planning on it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So this is what Jason shared earlier.
My wife sent me out for soap tonight, and so the streets are pretty calm. There's not a whole lot going on. I live on a main drag going into town, and this is my main road going into town. I'm going to run down to the store, and I'm going to walk by the barricades just to see firsthand what things are looking like. Yeah, very, very different than what I kind of expected to have happen. This is the main square there. Girls, this is really cute. Girls are playing snowball fights right next to the police.
And that right there, what you're looking at, those are the police standing with their shields in front of the administration building right there. That's a line of police, and I'm
the main White House.
In all the capital cities, the barricades have been built and rioters have tried to take the main administration buildings.
Of course, people aren't getting too terribly close. Alright, so now I just wanted to get myself here in the picture one time around, and just kind of see what's all behind us. It's actually a great shot right there.
You're looking at, those are the barricades. Those are bags filled with snow and then covered with ice. And inside there's tents and cooking. They're cooking and serving food for all the protesters. It's a scaled down model of what's happening in Kyiv.
It's just, there's enough people around right now that you're constantly looking over your shoulder and just wondering, you know, what's going to happen next. It's never a good thing when you've got police with shields standing and ready with barricades built out of snow and ice, and yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
And this is 15 minutes from my house.
Man, I tell you what, this is really just as close to war and revolution as I would ever want to get. And the air is filled with smoke. They got a couple pots of
And right there, I had somebody come up to me and say, "You got to turn your camera off." I wasn't allowed to film any further. So.
Getting close.
Glory to Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine! Glory to nationalism. Basically.
I have a question, Jason. If you have a call to action for those watching, what would it be?
A call to action. Yeah, share the videos, call your senator, pay attention to what's happening in Ukraine, and just share. And if you're a person of faith, pray. Me and my community, you know, we pray and trust that the Lord is going to bring hope and healing. We're already seeing a number of people who are, the prayer is taking place. There is a unity that's taking place as a result of this, in this moment of desperation and hope. If you're a person of faith, pray. If you're an activist, share the videos. If you're politically motivated, call your congressman or your senator.
There is something for everybody to do, and you will find all of the information once that's available on this event page, so keep it handy. And Scott and I and Jason, if he would like, will be able to share it out with everybody in our circles so that we can make sure that this video portion right here is available for you to share and to reference.
So
We crammed a lot of information, so I want to say big thanks to everybody that stuck around and listened. I see there's a bunch of people that have to check out and get going, and I totally understand that. I know it's 12:30 where I am, but I really appreciate. I can't tell you how much I appreciate, and on behalf of my friends and family back in Ukraine, appreciate the time that you've invested to sit and listen to this dialogue and invest into this plight. So thank you. Stan, Stephanie, Phil, and so many more. I'm just reading off the top couple names that I see.
So we're going to end the broadcast with this plea from a person, I believe, back in the Ukraine, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Jason, for everything that you have done and everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Jess, go ahead and blue box, and here we go.
I'm talking to you not as the brother of the politician. I'm not a politician, but a regular Ukrainian that asks for help for our suffering people. 24 years after fall of the Iron Curtain, we finally want to live in peace and freedom in our country, without corruption, abuse of human rights, and constant breach of law. On the behalf of the majority of the Ukrainian people, I urgently request the leaders of the Western world to support us and help. Don't leave us alone. Peace.
I wanted to send a message to all of you brave citizens of Ukraine who are struggling to look forward and not back. We here in the United States have great affinity for those seeking democracy. We have learned through trial and error that true democracy cannot exist without a free and fair and honest election. You cannot have a democracy when you arrest and harm its peaceful protesters. You certainly cannot have a true democracy if you take political prisoners like Tymoshenko simply because you disagree with the way they want to govern. So let me just say this to all of you in the square in Kiev or all around Ukraine. When you look to the West, know that we are looking back at you with great admiration. We wish you a peaceful and safe mission. We wish you the government that you want, and we wish you the strength to carry on. Good luck.
I want to send a message to the people of the Ukraine to let them know that I wish them all the best of luck in their peaceful struggle for democracy and freedom. Peace.
Good evening. I'm Quincy Jones, and as the world gathers this evening to welcome in the new year and all of the hopes and aspirations that it may bring, I wanted to take a moment to send my best wishes and admirations to each and every one of you there in the square in Kiev and throughout Ukraine who have peacefully joined together to stand up for democracy and all of the freedoms that it entails. There's no more noble cause than the fight for justice and equality. And as you continue on this most righteous of endeavors, know that you are not alone in your struggle and that the world is watching. As the great American civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. History has proven time and time again that in a society rooted in democratic ideals will always overcome one rooted in oppression of any kind. And while your efforts to form a democratic Ukraine may sometimes seem wrought with obstacles, take inspiration and solace in the knowledge that yours is an endeavor that is greater and more powerful than those who seek to silence you. Your voices and your peaceful actions will serve as the foundation from which a truly democratic Ukraine will rise. I send you my most heartfelt blessings for your success and safety in this new year, and know that you are all in our thoughts and prayers. Spasiba.